Hi, I'm Paul Camillos and welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Join me and the STB crew for Series 8. Just hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the pod, share it and give it a like.
There is, I think, a genuine feeling that if you can go and be making close to $1 million, or in the case of Ezzy and Alana Smith, more than $1 million, $1.5 million a season playing in the WNBA, why would you risk that to play in the off season? There's so many ways they can stay engaged and stay fit and get worked out, particularly when you're earning millions of dollars.
Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Joining me today, it's Simon from WNBL Pulse. And we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different topics, including the WNBA and Australians in the WNBA, what's been happening in WNBL, and a whole bunch of other women's basketball topics. Simon, how you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's officially winter down here in Canberra. We had -3 last night. So I'm glad I wasn't commentating down at Tuggeranong Stadium like I was 2 nights before. But yeah, it's great. Beautiful day here though. It's beautiful and sunny.
Yeah, it's nice and sunny here too. And yeah, Tuggeranong Stadium gets a little bit chilly. Yeah,
that big high ceiling on court 4 and 5, and it just gets like a bit of a natural fridge.
Yeah, and you guys were the only ones having any NBL 1 action because you've got 2 teams down there.
Yeah, it's a weird little idiosyncrasy that seems to happen every year with the way that the COE has their entire schedule sort of created around their availability for going to junior nationals and school holidays and stuff like that. And I think we always do a bit of a sly trade where we play back-to-back games once. The Gunners and Nationals up at the COE on Thursday night, and then they come down the highway to Tuggeranong for the Friday night game.
Yep, and we'll be talking about a topic that could be really interesting in relation to all of NBL 1 later on in this podcast. And we're not going to give too much away. We'll just wait. We can keep people hooked in for that information a little bit later on.
Definitely.
All right, so let's start things off with the WNBA. We've had a lot of Australians in the WNBA this season.
Yep.
And it's almost like there's been a revolving door at the airports as well.
Yes.
With the way things have been going on. And I think, there's been, from my perspective anyway, I think there's been a whole lot more change in terms of the rosters, and particularly for Australians. There's been a few surprises for me. I'm just wondering, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but I would guess that this has been our biggest intake of a group of Australian players at the beginning of the season, like through the training camp roster that we've possibly ever had. I think there was 12 or 13.
12, I think, yeah.
12, yeah, which was really, really encouraging. It's weird. At the time, you're going, wow, that's fantastic. I guess you never know the intricacies of what is actually happening, and we can talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But it certainly looked fantastic for Australian basketball. It's always, I've always got this weird thing about the WNBA because it's. We were just chatting before we press record about how it's all American sport in general. It doesn't seem to be the case so much here in Australia, but you really are just this piece on a board that gets picked up and moved around, and we've got a plan for you here, but then something else happens, someone gets injured, and we've got an opportunity to bring another player in, so we'll just get rid of that one, and you kind of just get flicked around like you're not a real person. But like they say, that's part of the game, and if you want to be in the big leagues, that's how it works. But it was a really exciting opportunity for quite a few players this season.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of moves, shifts, and changes, and I think obviously the shortage of roster spots in the WNBA has a big impact on that, particularly for imports, and particularly where you've got imports that don't really have a lot of WNBA experience. Like, they're being challenged by people who've got a college career
Yep.
in the US, where obviously scouts have been watching them and they keep an eye on what's been going on with that player, which they may have an Australian in as a stopgap measure until someone becomes available.
Yep.
It's a lot more complicated than just, hey, you get signed up for the WNBA.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most obvious example of that would be Ali Wilson, right? Who's gone in, she's got a contract, she's played for the Mystics, put in some good performances, and then, I mean, I'll be honest, I'll say I was surprised when she was cut.
Yeah, I wasn't overly surprised because she'd had one or two games where she played good minutes and performed at that level, but there were a lot of games where she only got like a minute and a half or 2.5 minutes, and I was kind of going, oh, kind of doesn't really give you much confidence. But like another interesting, talking about not knowing what the individual teams have and what their plans are and stuff.
Yeah.
Christy Wallace and Maddie Rocci went over there and they took part in all the preseason stuff with the Tempo, Sandy Brondello's team. And once it came around to the first game of the season, both of them cut.
Yeah.
And, you wonder, I haven't spoken to anyone with knowledge around it or anything, but you wonder whether Sandy's gone, hey, you guys are kind of on that cusp. I mean, Christy's been there before.
Yep.
And performed at that level, but she's coming back from a long time out. Whether she's got on the phone and gone, look, we'll bring you guys over for training camp. You can have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, play some games, get the intensity, but we're not actually going to put you on the roster. And whether they know that, and it's just part of the biz, where they just go, yep, cool, we gave you this opportunity, thanks for coming, see you later. But it is weird. It's Ali Wilson was one that didn't have all the development talk or the waving to other clubs. I mean, the two weirdest ones, and I really feel for them, have been Alex Fowler and Annalie Maley, who've been flying all over the country. And I hope they didn't come back home and then get called back again. And I mean, I guess their frequent flyer point to be going off.
I was going to say it's good for the frequent flyer miles. But look, just quickly going back to Ali Wilson. I mean, there were games where she didn't get a lot of minutes, but even still, that little bit of time she was on, she played
definitely showed her worth. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, what are the other variables that people look at in the WNBA when they're assessing who's going to stay and who isn't? I think unless you've got some real time in the league, and I'll use Jade, for example, or Ezzy, Sammy, Beck Allen as well. You know, people who've had, a pedigree in the WNBA, that means that the coaches have a comfort level in their ability to perform, even if, like nobody has a great game every game, right? But they've seen them play enough to be able to say, yeah, okay, if they've got an off night or an off game, we know there's a really good chance that they're going to come back in the next game and they're going to step up.
Yep.
With some of the other players like, Ali or Maley or, take your pick.
Yep.
Fowler. Yes, they do perform well, but they're sort of, is one of the questions that the coach is asking themselves, how much are ownership looking at us to be able to deliver results? And I'm going to say that, if you look at the fact that Sandy got dropped by New York the year after she picked up a championship, the first championship that New York as a city has had, in basketball for decades.
Mm-hmm.
With the increase in value and attention and focus on the WNBA, does that start to put more pressure on the coaches to be able to perform where they're not necessarily giving players who are brought in who may not have the attention that other like US college-based players have? They're turning around and going, yeah, we'll give you a run for a few games, and then, that's not really working for us.
I'm sure there's an element of known quantity against unknown quantity. Like you mentioned, a lot of these players, they're watched from coming in as a freshman at the college level. They'll be in there 4 or 5 years, There's not so much of the one and done stuff in women's hoops as there are in men's, but perhaps it is that, you can, by the second year in, you can say, we've got 6 years of background looking at this player and what they can do and what they're capable of and stuff.
Yeah.
And we feel more comfortable than this woman from Australia who we've watched game tape of. We've watched her play 5 or 6 games and we've talked with some people who say she's really good. And I'm sure there's an element of that. It's just the known quantity. And I guess, we've been forever and ever wishing that there's more money in women's sports. And now that there is, I guess that brings more pressure and more, from owners or I'm sure every club is different with regard to their ownership structures and what they expect of coaches. And but we've also seen that sometimes, and particularly with other sports and the NBA, a lot of these clubs are hobbies for business billionaires who can just go, I just don't really like that coach. She was really successful, but I think we need to go in another direction. And decisions being made on a whim, perhaps. But I mean, we never know with Sandy. I haven't read anything, but maybe she went, New York is too much. I can imagine living there would be full on. They've got young kids, and maybe you go, yeah, it was awesome. We won a championship, but maybe it was a mutual thing. And she said, I'm quite happy to move on.
Well, there was that document. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a documentary that Kane Pittman did with Sandy on ESPN or Disney Plus, ESPN.
Yeah. Yep.
Where she was talking about the fact that she was living in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But her kids were in Arizona.
Yeah.
That's where the family home is. That's where they're going to school. So, yeah, look, for sure that's going to be a challenge. But I think the success of, and look, we're all happy about the success of the WNBA. But I think the success of the WNBA is having some unintended consequences. You're bringing in, there are people in the US who do focus on Australian talent. There's agents. We know of somebody who scouts Australian players extensively.
Yep. St Mary's College.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is St Mary's College, which is...
It's the Australian Embassy for the NCAA.
Yeah, close enough. And you see that they're bringing these players in. But I think the other part to it is that they're expecting... There's probably an expectation that the Australian players are going to step up and play at that, pretty much that minimum at that US college level, pretty much straight away. And I don't think they're that far off with their WNBL experience, but you kind of wonder what's this X factor that they're looking for? Are they bringing Australian players like, Izzy Borlays and Nadia Poch, Ali, Maylee, Mila Soa, over to see whether they're going to fit. And it's already, when they arrive, the coaches are already having this, we'll wait and see for a few rounds. And then they start doing the win-loss maths. And then they start looking at who else is out there, who's available. Like the whole thing with, I think probably what's happened with Maylee is pretty much a great encapsulation, as you said, of what happens in the WNBA. You come in, you play, it's not quite working out, you get picked up somewhere else, right? Then you get cut, and now, she's back to New York on a DP contract. I think another couple of seasons, the WNBA will start to settle itself out because so much change. New CBA impacts on the
2 new teams.
League. Yeah, 2 new teams, and there's more new teams coming in.
Yep.
And I think, we've got some good ambassadors for Australian players, Jado, Ezzy. I mean, look.
Lana Smith. Yep.
Yeah, Alana Smith. They've both Ezzy and Alana have signed, 3-year Supermax deal, which is just spectacular. That's fantastic news for the both of them.
Yeah.
For sure, you're going to start seeing more players get across there. I think we're just in this odd period where they're trying to figure it out. And again, the limitation of roster spots. I think it could even be that the coaches are playing it safe. They're saying, yeah, we know there's really great talent there in Australia, but we also know we've got great college talent that we can develop as well. So it's one of those interesting ones. But the other wild card in this is the performance of Australians in international competition, like this morning, right?
Yep.
Where the Kangaroos picked up silver at the 3x3 World Cup, and big shout out and congratulations to the gang for picking up that silver gong.
Awesome work.
Fantastic work against the US. Now, there's going to be eyeballs on those players because we're now starting to see, well, the way I'm perceiving it, we're starting to see 3x3 players being, I think they're being scouted as impact players in the 5-man game.
Yeah. Yep.
And the fact that it was such a close score in that game this morning against the US to get silver and fight back, I think it shows that we've got the players who can do it. It's more about how do they fit in the rosters and the rotations that the coach wants to run.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's just so many variations in what the expectation is. Like I think it's from being Australian, and we tend to have, trying to put this nicely, a well-attuned bullshit detector.
Yeah.
I do find watching a lot of American sport difficult. Like I love the actual sport is great, but the hype, just can be kind of grating. And I'd imagine, and from speaking to some of the players that go over there, it's probably the biggest shock they have to deal with is the level of hype and just over the topness that happens in American sport is quite overwhelming. And to be in and amongst it, I would love. I spoke to her about it last year, and I still like to do it. I would love to get Christy Wallace to sit down for an hour and talk about her experience of playing with Indiana when Caitlin Clark came in. I'd imagine that would have just been a hell of a ride, whether it was good or bad or whatever. It would have just been unbelievable. But it's that sort of that's an X factor in it as well. If there's a belief and it's about ticket sales. You can have a player who's not quite as good as other players on the team, but if she's going to bring in an extra 3,000 or 4,000 people to a game, at the end of the day, particularly over there, it's a business.
That's very true. A couple of things I want to touch on that you've mentioned through this bit about the WNBA. Maddie Rocci, I'm actually wondering because she hasn't had a lot of international experience, even though she's doing. She has been in Opal squads. I actually wonder whether part of the process for Sandy was, let's get her over here on a training camp contract, but that also gives her the opportunity to experience this different facet of the game where there's, you're playing against US college players, you're playing against, WNBA players.
Yeah.
To try and give yourself a little bit of depth and also see how does Maddie Rocci react in that scenario.
Yep.
Not necessarily, and it would be for the purposes of how do we try and build up her skill and her confidence in this kind of an environment.
Yeah.
Because despite what anybody else says, I think for sure you're going to see Maddie Rocci in Opal squads in the future because of the way we see her play in the WNBL.
Yeah, and it's important to note too that it's not just Australian players that this is happening to.
Oh, sure.
Like you've seen Hayley Jones, who came out here and played and was fantastic. Shug Sutton.
Yep.
They've been cut.
Yep.
There's been a bunch of players that are like really, really strong players that for whatever reason seems just gone, that doesn't fit in with our system and cut it. I mean, I think, going back to what we were saying about Izzy Borlase and Nadia Poch, they're young, and I think that the teams that have picked them up see the potential, whereas perhaps again being careful. But Ali Wilson's maybe they've looked at and thought, is this her ceiling? This is as good as she will get. You just never know. You just never really know because you don't know if it's a coach making a decision, whether it's an owner making a decision, whether the crowd just goes, we don't kind of like that player for whatever reason. I mean, you look at the media stuff that is still just so horrifically toxic about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you see the influence that fans can have on on teams and players' careers and stuff, and it's not good.
No,
So,
even at the moment, you're seeing. I've been noticing there's been some stories up on YouTube and some stuff around on social media where they're talking about, there's potentially friction between the Indiana coach and Caitlin Clark.
insane stuff.
And I'm kind of looking at it going, well, yeah, okay. If you take a specific 4-second clip of video
Out of a timeout where she dragged her and put her on the bench,
right. I mean, you have no idea what was behind that.
No,
You're
no
generating
context.
a narrative of 4 seconds of video, and then you keep replaying it to kind of like reinforce your idea.
10,000 people on Twitter are calling for the coach to be sacked, and it's just insane.
Yeah, and like if you're in that crucible of pressure, right, and you've got players who you're rolling the dice on. Like, let's be honest, you're rolling the dice on players who've come in from Australia. Yes, they've got a good record in the WNBL. With that sort of pressure, do you turn around, as the coach, do you then turn around and go, yeah, okay, I might let this one slide?
Yep.
And look, just going back to the Ali Wilson thing, having seen her career progression from when she was at Flames the first time through to what's happening, the way her game's improved with her time in Perth, I think she's still got further to go with her game.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think Washington probably I think they bailed early on her and probably cut her minutes and should have given her a bit more of a run. And
definitely. I mean, any club here is just going to be fighting for her signature. And it's just so hard to speculate about the process and what's going on. But it's a rough old business.
It is. But the thing is, we've still got Australians playing in the WNBA. They are performing well. They're playing well. And it'll be great to see how they continue over the rest of the season. So let's kind of toddle over to the WNBL, where there's been a lot happening.
There sure has.
Considering how early into the year it is, relatively speaking, the number of changes that have been going on in terms of roster that we've been seeing announcements about, has been pretty interesting.
It's been crazy. Just a lot of movement so early. And it was difficult because I spoke to a couple of coaches and they were just all waiting on that whole WNBA, CBA stuff.
Yeah.
There were so many. I mean, there was a reality at the beginning toward the end of March when our season had finished, and talking with Jade Melbourne, there was an expectation that they might not play, that there wouldn't be a season this season.
Yeah,
and of course that trickle down effect down to our league is massive. So a lot of coaches waiting around, just seeing what's happening, and then once that finally came, it's just my theory. I think they had done a lot of work early and a lot of scenarios going, well, if it goes ahead, these players won't be available because we did have so many potential Australian WNBA players. So what's my second option here? What's my third option? And I think once that definite news kicked in, I think a lot of the coaches went, right, cool. Okay, I've got all my notes ready to go to work and got in early, which is it's exciting.
It is. One of the interesting outcomes from the WNBA CBA is with the increase in salaries, and I'm going to, go back to, I'll use Ezzy as an example, 3-year Supermax.
Yeah.
What are the chances, that she's going to risk that by playing in other leagues for the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Yeah, this is something I've also chatted with a lot of people about. There is, I think, a genuine feeling that if you can go and be making close to $1 million, or in the case of Ezzy and Alana Smith, more than $1 million, $1.5 million a season playing in the WNBA, why would you risk that to play in the off season? There's so many ways they can stay engaged and stay fit and get worked out, particularly when you're earning millions of dollars. Very easy to put on a coach and come back to Melbourne or Sydney and go, okay, coach, I want you to work me out 3 days a week, and, make sure I'm fit and I'm working on my game and I don't have to play in another league. I can actually have a bit of a holiday. I mean, Jade Melbourne's a great example. She has not had a season off in close to 6 years.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, you know, you and I are two old men. We're coming at it from our perspective. But if I didn't have to play all year round and I was making more money than I ever had, then I wouldn't. I would take that time off.
Well, yeah, you would. And look, if you come back to Australia and you are being worked out because you've got a coach on, whatever, if you really do want to get some game time, well, there's no shortage of WNBL teams.
Yep.
Who would be willing to say, yeah, sure, come on in and you know, you can have a light scrimmage with us.
Yep. Or there's an injury happening, you know, in a team, and one of your starting 5 players is out for 4 weeks. So, you know, if you know, for instance, a Chloe Bibby although Chloe Bibby got waived as well. Say Jado, for example, if Jade's not playing in the WNBA off season, you give her a call and go, you want to come play for the Caps for 4 weeks, just a short contract while so-and-so's out on injury. You know, there'll always be those opportunities, but it really gives those players so much opportunity and so much control over their career, and to avoid that burning out, because it's a real thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know, like, one of the things that's always surprised me is the schedule that Jade played to.
Yeah.
Right?
Crazy.
Yeah. That's, I mean, you know, obvious. She loves the game. She wants to play.
Oh, yeah.
But there's that whole recovery thing that has to come into the equation as well.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, there's been a few interesting moves that have been happening. One of the ones that surprised me was Bendigo. It took a little bit of time before they re-announced that Kennedy was back, and Perth only, I think it was last week.
Yeah, a week or two ago, I think.
Announced that Ryan was coming back.
Yeah.
And there's been some interesting player changes too. You know, you've had some moves around, some people staying that people were wondering whether they would or they wouldn't. But I think the two that have surprised me is Southside and Geelong. You know, Southside, big change with coaching, bringing in Sam McKinnon.
Yep.
I'm not going to get into that whole discussion of how many women are coaching in the WNBL as against men.
No, that's probably one for female commentators of the sport. And
yeah,
I mean, not that we disagree with them. I think it's it's just it's a conversation that's always difficult to have. But
you know, they're starting to bring in some interesting players. Like you got Siu Wang or Wang Siu.
Yeah,
is like and if memory serves, she kind of did some damage in the 3x3 in Chengdu.
Okay.
To us, I think it was Chengdu. It was the games that were played in what looked like a shopping centre, which is always an interesting thing about 3x3 because they can play it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've seen some weird setups. The whole Southside thing it's almost like a clean slate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've signed some big names.
Yep. Signed some big names.
Saffron Shields.
Yeah.
And Carly Ernst, she was always still in contract, I believe, but she'll be back playing. Hannah Hank, that's a great pickup. Tess Heels come back from college.
Yes.
But some pretty huge departures, including the coach.
Yep.
Christy Harrow gone, and Izzy Bourne, Maddie Rocci, Nia Locke, all off to other clubs.
Yeah. Beck Cole is to Geelong.
Yeah.
So you can see there are players who look like they've been picked up because of the coach. You know, so Cheryl's brought in players that obviously, you know, work well in her system.
I did have a feeling like Cheryl's back, and I had the Blues Brothers line, we're bringing the band back together. It's like she's got Maddie, she's got Beck Cole.
Yeah. And
no news on what Kayla's doing yet, though. But there's a lot of talk and a lot of movement.
Yeah, for Sydney as well. Renee Garlop's starting to put together a very interesting team.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's been telling as well is it's not just who is being signed, but who's not being re-signed. You know, you look at that, you start wondering what sort of puzzle is the coach putting putting together? What are they trying to build? You got Izzy Bourne coming into Sydney, Ali Wilson coming into Sydney,
Jazz Shelley.
Jazz Shelley's coming in. We've seen Jazz playing for North's Bears.
Killing it.
She's been absolutely lighting it.
Destroying teams, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of NBL 1 games where she's played, and it's just like it's amazing to watch her play.
That was probably one of the worst kept secrets in the off season.
Yeah.
As soon as Jazz signed with North's Bears, everyone's like, "Oh, she's playing at Sydney next year." Definitely, 100%. She's playing at Sydney next year.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something that's been really interesting in the games that we've seen with North's Bears. That combination of Izzy Morgan and Jazz Shelley, it's been a really they're quite a duo.
Yeah,
they're a good.
It's a great pickup for Sydney, Izzy Morgan.
Yeah,
she's just flourished there. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, and she lost a bit of time last season with the foot injury,
but that looks like a really good team.
Yeah, but I've got to say, I've been pretty impressed with the team that Gorry's putting together for the Caps.
Yeah, we've been quietly excited. But it's like Amy Atwell, I am very excited about.
Yeah,
I've said since she came back, every game in Perth, I'm like, man, she'd look good in a Caps uniform. That'd be great. That'd be great. But
and you got Izzy Palmer and Charlotte Whittaker, Sean Rabati.
Yeah, got the New Zealand connection.
Yeah.
Natty Hurst's pulling some strings, bringing in some New Zealand girls, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And you've kept Isa Brancatisano as well.
Yep, yeah. So it's obviously there's a massive elephant in the room when it comes to the Capitals, but we still don't know what Jade Melbourne's decided to do. But so everyone here in Canberra is waiting with bated breath, trying to find out whether she'll be back or she'll go to another team or whether she'll go to Europe or whether she'll go, you know what, I need a holiday.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I don't think anybody would be surprised if she was like, you know what, I need a holiday.
Yeah, yep.
But then again, I wonder how long would the holiday last before she's she's itching to get back on the floor.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious because at the ripe old age of 23, she'll be 24. 24 fairly soon. She made a comment at the end of the year like, my body just needs a rest time. I'm like, you sound like Lauren Jackson at 36, but I mean, a lot of it's to do with the way she plays. She's that 100% foot to the floor all the time. And as she does get older, she's going to need that rest. She's going to need to back it off a bit. But
and on top of that, you say, the ripe old age of 23, and we kind of chuckle about it. But think about how long she's been on the radar screen, at a prime level in Australian basketball.
Yep.
I remember we went up to Hills when she was playing COE in NBL 1 to watch her play.
Yeah.
And it feels like it was decades ago, but it wasn't. It was
in 2020, 2019, 2020 when she was at
something like that. Yeah, it's only 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, wow. But she's just been so front and center for so long.
Yep.
And it says a lot about, again, it goes back to saying a lot about the depth that we've got in our WNBL talent pool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you look at the team that Cheryl's putting together at Geelong.
Yep.
Beck Cole, Dakota Crichton, Maddie Roches, we've said, Lily Rotunno, Alex Sharp. There's depth there. And dare I say it, and we say it every year, but I think this year's probably going to be even tighter than last year. And last year was down to the wire to see who the hell was going to end up in the top 4.
Yep.
And one of the things we haven't talked about is we got a new team, the Tasmanian Pulse.
That's right. And they had a big announcement the other day with signing Steph Reed.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a big pickup. And I think you got to put that one down to having Claudia Brassard as head coach.
Yeah. She was been very involved in Townsville.
I don't think Claudia's going to be enjoying the weather in Tasmania at the moment compared to
Well, if she's still going to be based in Townsville, I'd say she'll be on the first plane as soon as the season finishes. She'll be on the plane up north rather than hang around in Tasmania for winter. But, yeah. No, it's going to be really exciting to see how they go. They've signed some big pieces. Darcy Garvin, Keely Froling, that was another one of the worst kept secrets in basketball.
Yep.
That she's played in that part of the world in the off season for many, many, many years and loves it down there.
Yeah, for the tournament.
So that's going to be another exciting slant on the season coming ahead.
And they've still got a lot of openings. It's going to be exciting to watch how Claudia fills in the rest of the squad. And it's a management team, like it's an organisation that expects that doesn't matter whether, it's the first year or not.
Yep.
We'll
results
the effort behind the team to get the results. I mean, we saw that in the NBL with the Jack Jumpers.
Yep.
I'm not expecting any less with the Jewels.
No, and the word on the street is they've got some money and they've been splashing it around, that's exciting as well. With no imports signed at the moment for them. It'll be really interesting to see where they come. I mean, they've only got 5 players on the roster.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty great starting group to begin with. There's some youngsters. So Andy Smith, that'll be interesting to watch her development. Of course, Lana Smith's younger sister.
Yep.
But yeah, I expect more as the season bears out, more of these returning college players to sign.
Yeah.
Because if you look at last season, in particular with Bendigo, how well they did with bringing in some new players like Liv Pollard. She was a real success story. She really just stood out and came in absolutely WNBL ready. They're expecting very similar stuff from Isabel Palmer when she gets here in Canberra. There's just lots of new blood. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a season where there's going to be some upsets that people just aren't going to expect the results that we get. You look at, and I think Adelaide also, the way Aja Paramamara has been as a head coach has been recruiting, there's going to be some. There's been some surprises there. I mean, picking up Zatina from Canberra, I can tell you're happy about that.
Again, you never know what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh, sure.
There was certainly a lot of excitement before last season about Zatina coming to Canberra.
Yeah.
And that, becoming a pillar, I guess, her and Jado.
But then there was the injury thing.
Yeah, exactly right. She missed the beginning of the season. Jade was out for periods of the season. And, I think it's sometimes as simple, and when we're not talking about $1 million salaries here.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's just as simple as, well, I'm just not comfortable here, whether it's the program or whether it's the town or whatever. So you don't really know what's going on. But, we all love to speculate. But, yeah, a little disappointing that we only saw her for one season.
Yeah, I think one of the other areas that I think will be a thing to watch is the imports that we end up getting in the various teams.
I think, there are some big pieces, like I speaking from my home team, I can't see us making any announcements about imports until we know what's going on with Jade.
Yeah.
And there's probably other clubs that are in similar situations waiting to hear from some big pieces about whether they're going to be around or not. Because the other thing we might talk a little bit more about this, but is the big money that got thrown at players from China this season. We saw Sarah Blitzovs depart from the Capitals halfway through the season. Saw Jade and Kayla and I think Zatina as well at the end of the season all went over to China, played a couple of weeks in some instances for big money.
Yep.
We don't know how much of that money's being thrown around as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of change going on in the landscape of the various leagues. And I think one of the things we can talk about now is, and you kind of flagged this when we were talking a few weeks back on the phone, that there's been noises and discussion about the WNBL potentially going to a winter schedule.
Yes. I guess
That,
I
that's
guess before we
interesting. I'd like to get your opinion because I know where I land on this one.
yeah, yeah. I guess before we head down that road, we need to talk about the other major departure from the WNBL, and that's Jenny Sager. Like her leaving and the new, I guess it's the CEO position that now we've got Justin Nelson looking like he's the new CEO and
Chief
with
Operating.
Lauren Jackson kind of this.
Chief Operating Officer?
Yeah, they've changed the nomenclature, but it's quietly concerning. I mean, I'm very excited about Justin Nelson coming on board. You know, he's done some amazing things. He was amazing when he was at the Boomers, and what he's done with the Tawahi League and stuff is pretty amazing. But yeah, this rumor that one of the first things they've discussed is moving the WNBL season to winter so that it doesn't clash with Project B.
Okay. I want to...
Sorry, it's a massive can of worms. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I want to split those two topics.
Yep.
And I'm curious to hear, where do you land on the concept of the WNBL as a winter league?
From a purely Canberra perspective, I don't like it because we're a small market.
Yeah.
Compared to your Sydneys and Melbournes and Adelaides and, you know, Brisbane's or wherever else.
Yeah.
You know, we're just under 500,000 people here in Canberra. Wintertime in Canberra is Raiders and Brumbies, and our National Ice Hockey League team, the Canberra Brave, are now playing out of the AIS arena. It would cause a massive logjam, I think, in Canberra sport. Not that, you know, you get the same people that go to a Canberra Raiders game that go to a Capitals game or that go to a Brumbies game and go to a Brave game or whatever, but there's literally no competition for the WNBL in the summer.
Okay.
And I think nationwide, your only major competition is probably cricket.
Yeah.
And okay. I think it would be a backward step.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the game being played in winter for a couple of reasons. First of all, as you've said, it's not the same audience as rugby league or rugby union.
Yep.
They're different audiences. I think also you may end up getting more people coming to a game because basketball's an indoor sport, right? In winter, you know, you can be inside an air-conditioned stadium where it's comfortable. You can watch a game. It doesn't matter whether it's raining or snowing or, you know, whatever. You can be indoors. You can watch the game. It's not that far to get to parking at AIS as well. It's quite close by to the stadium.
Yep.
So I think I don't see it as being a problem. Certainly in summer, particularly in some of the bigger markets. Let's take Sydney, for example. It's like, well, let's say the game's tipping off at 5 or 5:30. It's the middle of the afternoon. People are still at the beach, or people are just sort of, you know, they want to be outdoors. So personally, I don't have a problem with it. I see some other issues. One of the big issues I see is, what does that then do with your scheduling for NBL and NBL 1? Because if there's a stated desire to have double headers, NBL and WNBL games wherever it's possible to be done, which obviously, you know, Tasmania, Sydney, you've got to start looking at how you're going to reschedule the other leagues. And what happens with NBL 1? Does that then...
Yeah, that's one of my big concerns is NBL 1, because they've done such a great job over the last 4 or 5 years of really raising the profile and the level of the game in NBL 1. And I think you'd be sacrificing that. You know, you take the NBL 1 East women's competition, so you take out your Jazz Shelley, you take out Lauren Nicholson, take out Shyla Hill, take out any number of other fringe WNBL players are now not playing NBL 1 to play WNBL. I think you'd just be kind of crapping on all that work that you've done over the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
unless you talk about wholesale scheduling shifts where you move NBL and WNBL into a, you know, autumn, winter for the NBL, because obviously NBL's got a longer season. Autumn to late winter, early spring season. WNBL predominantly autumn to the end of winter.
Yep.
and then move NBL 1 to, basically come in a few weeks after those two seasons finish. And then
You bump
roll
it
through.
further into the year or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that brings with it its own set of complexities as well. So, I don't have an issue with the Winter League from the point of view of playing in winter, but I can see a whole lot of other things that get complicated around it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the other point now about Project B. In my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, I don't see Project B as a threat to the WNBL for a few reasons. Apart from maybe one or two players who are going to be, Alana Smith, an Ezzy McBeggar, someone like that, I can't see Project B coming to try and poach WNBL players.
Yeah.
For the sort of money that they want to throw around.
Yep.
That's the first thing.
Agreed.
The second thing, they're looking at 66 players. 6 teams, 11 players on the roster. So already they're saying we're only going to take that top 1%, 2% of players globally to bring them into the league. The third thing, we're going to bounce it around different locations. So it's okay, I know the story is it's going to be a Formula One-like league that will be played in different places over whatever period of time. Fine, I get it. I'm challenged by the concept that, as far as I'm aware, the players will rotate from team to team to team across, from however they're going to do it.
That's the crux of the whole thing at the moment. It's that there's so little actual solid information about what's going on with it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I get part of what I've heard about, which is, it's going to be a Formula One style travel from place to place play. And if I take the analog, Formula One, yes, you've got drivers who drive for a team and they move from team to team. Okay, I get that too. Here's the difference.
But not at the end of every season.
Well, even if they did, right? If they did. Here's the difference, in my opinion. And I'm saying this as a Formula One fan, been a Formula One fan for an awful long time. Ferrari has been around since the start of the World Championship in 1950 and even racing prior to that. Williams, who's got Constructors' Championships and World Championships as well, they were formed in 75, 76. So they've been around for 50 years. And you've got other teams that have got longevity. And so people can be a Ferrari fan or they can be a fan of a driver. But typically, you get that real tribal buy-in at the team level.
Yep.
Right? And you see it in basketball. You see it. You certainly see it in Canberra whenever there's a Caps game. Right?
Yep.
You've got an incredibly vocal crowd down there at AIS. So that's why I'm not necessarily seeing Project B as a potential threat to the WNBL, purely on the basis that you're telling me you're going to have 6 teams. I don't even know what they're called. It might be out there, but I haven't seen it. So I don't know what they're going to be called.
I did quite a bit of research on this, and there's so little information.
You're going to rotate the players through the various teams as well.
Yeah.
Who am I barracking for? Am I barracking for a team that I know nothing about? Are those teams going to be tied to a city? Are they going to be tied to, I don't know. Look at soccer, even where you've got, look, and soccer to me is kind of crazy because you've got your national championships and then you've got the Euro championships and then you've got something else and, then you've got these winners go and play those winners and whatever, but they're bringing their fans along.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, there was some video of a Greek basketball team, Panathinaikos, and you got this stadium full of people.
Yeah.
And they're 1,000% behind their team. In early days in the podcast, we spoke with Vanessa Panousis when she was playing in Greece, and one of the things she said was, because we play for a club that has a soccer team, a men's basketball team, a women's basketball team, and whatever other sport, the fans come out for the club.
Yeah.
And they'll come and watch the men play basketball, and they'll stay and watch the women play basketball, and then they'll also support the soccer team. And so again, it's coming back to that tribalism, that, my team, which we see a lot of in the WNBL. I mean, you go up to town.
Yeah.
I've never been there, but I can't conceive of anybody who lives in Townsville supporting a WNBL team other than Townsville.
No.
Okay, those cowbells, and we've all seen them. Those, for big games, they travel.
Yeah. Yep.
And they bring their cowbells with them.
God, one of my favorite WNBL experiences would have been, I don't know, 2000, maybe 2001, 2002, where we had Townsville at Tuggeranong Stadium, and they were playing the Capitals in a final, and there were 200 odd Townsville fans there, and they had the fire bell.
Yep.
Like it's like this bell that they dragged out of some fire station, and they're just going nuts. Yeah, you're right. And to me, it's just such an unknown entity at the moment.
Yeah,
like I just can't wrap my head around why you would be planning to upend a major league competition like the WNBL on what might happen with this competition that's 95% on paper at the moment and has no. It just seems bizarre to me. I just can't wrap my head around it.
Well, there's no way that they're going to make a change for this season.
No,
there's going to be a lot of planning involved. So you'll get to see one round of Project B at least.
Yeah.
But I kind of. Yeah, they got a lot of great players and all the rest of it. I just don't necessarily see it as being, the great big threat that people necessarily believe it is, because it's that fan engagement, that fan connection, the fan ownership. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to say it, even if you're modelling it on Formula One, you got teams that have existed for decades, and they've built up their fans over decades. And you got fans who follow their driver from team to team, but still they support the team. So you've automatically got this built-in fan base. That's, if you're trying to build that from scratch and you're not going to allow the players to stay and they're going to keep moving around, it's like, are the Project B teams going to be based in a city, country? What's it going to be? Or is it just going to be this artificial construct? And if it's going to be an artificial construct, I don't think people are going to get behind it. And that brings us back to the whole question of, is it going to be a threat to the WNBL? I'm not seeing it. I would rather see the WNBL maybe do a competition where it's like the winners of Tauihi League get to play the winners of the WNBL.
Yeah, definitely something like that. And the idea that you would move it to compete with the WNBA, which is a proven entity, it does take players away from the WNBL who play there. And now with salaries being what they are you're gonna take $700,000 or $800,000 US against $100,000 here in Australia, or $200,000 here in Australia. Like that is a much bigger conflict with regard to having an effect on our league than some sort of pipe dream that hasn't hit the ground running yet. I just don't see it. I don't see it yet.
We'll get to see more about Project B later this year. So, again, got to hold back some comment until it's played its first rounds. But I personally, I think when they first moved basketball from winter to summer, which was a predominantly TV driven, because at the time, WNBL and NBL teams were pretty much tied together. It was a TV driven thing. I know that there was at the time there was a lot of, I'll say, spirited discussion about the move and how it would work. And I think now, like I said, I don't have a problem with going back to winter, but let's make sure that we understand all the implications of what it's going to do, because we've now got a fairly settled calendar. So you've got a good, solid annual cycle of games and leagues. So it'll be interesting to see how that all is going to play out if they're going to make a change like that.
Yeah, my concern is that, why are we making that change, really? And it just, kind of got me on edge going, why is the first thing that's come out about the new leadership in the league talking about moving the competition? I mean, we could be barking up a completely wrong tree here. It's got nothing to do with Project B. But that was kind of mentioned in some of the stuff that I read. But
Yeah.
it's like
I think a lot of it has to do, not so much with Project B, but I think more to do with the fact that you got issues. Look, let's face it, there's so much to do in summer. And if you got 5:30 games scheduled, even 7:30, the sun's still out. People are down at the beach. People could be out to dinner somewhere. And unfortunately, one of the problems with most of the stadiums in Australia is that they're not necessarily in places that have a lot of infrastructure around them in terms of restaurants, bars, pubs, clubs, whatever it is that people, wherever people want to go and get their entertainment.
yeah,
I remember when the old Sydney Entertainment Centre was the home for the Flames and the Kings back in the day. You
yeah,
could go to Chinatown beforehand, you go catch a couple of games, then you could go get a drink afterwards or a coffee or whatever you wanted while the car park cleared out, then go grab the car and go home. So it was a night out rather than just a going out to watch games. And in winter, that was great, and you know what? Even in summer, it would work if you had stadiums that had those facilities around them as well.
yeah. But that's not going to change simply by moving the competition to a winter comp.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I've always been, again, I was dumbfounded by the decision to re-sign Hoops Fest to Perth for another 2 years. Like, to me, from my perspective, you're placing it out of reach for 90% of your WNBL fans, because we looked at going last year, Michelle and I, and it was going to cost us the better part of $4,000.
Yeah,
to fly from the East Coast out to Perth to watch our team once and maybe watch an NBL 1 game. And I understand it's commercial stuff and that WA government is kicking in a whole lot of money and stuff, and that's part of the process. But it's just another one of those decisions where you kind of scratch your head and go, really? You're kind of limiting it to a very, very small community of people that are going to be able to go to it.
Yeah, look, it's not cheap to go to Perth.
No,
it's a long haul flight. So it's 5.5 hours in a plane on the way there.
Yeah,
and then you've got your accommodation costs and all the rest of it. It's not cheap, but like you said, WA government kicks in money.
Yep,
and that helps to get it over the line over there.
And I'm watching it in previous years. Some of the games, unless it's Perth playing, they look like there's no one there, and which isn't a big surprise either. I think that having it East Coast would attract a lot more attention. But
yeah, look, again, I'd go like with the NBL 1 finals.
Yeah,
rotate.
Yeah, exactly.
In different locations.
Yep.
Give people an opportunity to see it, because Hoops Fest, in effect, it becomes an advertisement, not just basketball, the game, but also the culture around basketball.
Yeah.
And moving it around could be really advantageous in bringing in more fans.
Well, that's kind of the drive behind Project B. They're talking about having 7 2-week tournaments. And when the Project B, very, as you said, very similar to F1. And as the circus rolls into town, and it's not just about the games, they do concerts and they do, events around it and stuff, similar to what they do at Hoopfest, except Hoopfest has been in one place for 3 years and is going to stay there for another 2 years. So it's, you can understand that side of it, and it looks like fun.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that we've seen televised, Hoopfest looks like it'd be really great, but it's financially just out of reach for so many people.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not a cheap trip.
No.
Okay, well, I think we've sort of covered a lot of terrain today.
Yeah.
As always, it's great having an opportunity to sit down and talk to you about all sorts of different things to do with basketball. Obviously, what's been going on with the Australians in the WNBA and the high level of turnover is certainly an interesting conversation. What's happening with WNBL and all the other stuff that's coming up with Hoops Fest, Winter League, Project B. Yeah, there's a lot happening. And
it could be worse. We could have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
There's plenty to get your teeth into.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is. Simon, as always, great having an opportunity to sit down and talk to you about this stuff. And we'll have to do it again real soon.
Absolutely. Always love chatting with you, Paul.
Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get our latest pod, and we really appreciate if we could get a like and a review so we can extend the reach to more listeners. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn.